you testified to an important and bedrock principle of American law that our service members follow lawful orders and lawful orders only. Is that right? Do you agree with the statement, quote, "The military won't follow unlawful orders"?
I do.
Mr. Hegseth, do you agree with that statement?
I do, but understand what you're insinuating at a partisan point.
I'm not. I'm actually quoting you directly, Mr. Hegseth, from April 12th, 2016. And I appreciate that on the record, you've clarified this important principle of American
Gentlelady's time's expired.
Hegseth walked into that hearing asking for $1.50 trillion in taxpayer money, and then completely fell apart when Goodlander asked the most basic question imaginable. Where did the $25 billion already spent in Iran actually go? No breakdown. No clear answer. No accountability. Just deflection, excuses, and a promise to provide something later. That is not leadership. That is not transparency. That is a man demanding a blank check while failing to explain the money already burned under his watch. And when Goodlander cornered him with his own past words about unlawful military orders, he tried to call it a partisan attack, until she shut him down with one devastating line. I'm actually quoting you directly, Mr. Hegseth. That was the moment the room changed, because Hegseth wasn't being smeared. He was being exposed by his own words.
Chair, now we're going to recognize a gentlelady from New Hampshire, Ms. Goodlander.
I want to thank our witnesses for being here today, and I want to begin by getting right to it, since my time is limited, on this $1.5 trillion budget request. Mr. Hegseth, you testified last year and you testified again today that you will be accountable for every American taxpayer dollar that comes to the department, where it goes and why. That's really important since, as it's been pointed out, the department has failed 8 audits. The department remains on GAO's high-risk list. The Inspector General just last year alone identified billions of dollars that could have been put to better use, and in questioned costs, that is spending that raised red flags. So this is a crisis right now in accountability of where the dollars of the American taxpayers who are in the middle of a cost crisis, where this money is going. I want to ask about your war in Iran. And Mr. Hurst, you testified earlier today that $25 billion has been spent to date. I just want to clarify that that is money, that taxpayer dollars that have been spent already in this war.
$25 reflects the costs of the war, right? So we've already spent the dollars on munitions and things like that. So we're factoring in cost of munitions expended into that total.
So how much of that has gone towards munitions? Does that include the munitions that have been spent to date?
Yeah, that reflects the munitions that have been spent to date and other operational costs.
Can you give us a breakdown of what those costs are?
We'll work to get you guys a product that has a detailed breakdown of those costs.
Yeah, my concern here is, Mr. Hegseth, you've testified repeatedly that you're going to be accountable for each and every American taxpayer dollar that you spend, that you're going to be accountable for the rationale. Here we are 60 days in to your war of choice in Iran, and you can't give us an answer on a breakdown of the basic breakdown of American taxpayer dollars that have been spent in your war of choice? That's a question for Mr. Hurst. Right now, as you sit here now, you
We're
cannot...
happy to give you a breakdown. We'll provide you a product after this hearing.
Well, I would love for you to give us this breakdown now and explain to us, was this unbudgeted costs, or was this something the department planned for in advance, since you were appropriated $1 trillion last year?
The department deals with contingency operations all the time within its normal budget.
So this was not budgeted for. My point here is, you know, and General Kane, you've testified to this. We all understand, for you to do your jobs, you need Congress to pass budgets. For us to do our jobs, we need you to give us the details and to be accountable to American taxpayers. And so I got to say, it's an extraordinary dereliction that as you sit here, you cannot account for billions of dollars that have already been spent
You're
in this
briefed
war.
on munitions every week. You and your entire staff have every,
asking
just so the
you-
American public know, it's not
Mr.
as if you don't
Hegseth,
have munitions levels.
Mr.
You do
Hegseth,
from us every single week. So
Mr.
you know
Hegseth,
exactly the numbers you're talking
Mr. Hegseth,
about.
you have testified that American taxpayers need to know where their dollars are going. And as you sit here today, you can't provide us with a basic answer to the most simple question that you should be able to answer to each and every American
You're
taxpayer.
asking a question to an answer with an answer you already have.
No, I'm asking you for a breakdown where you said you will be accountable for every taxpayer dollar. You cannot tell us where any of the $25 billion in taxpayer funds that have gone to fund your war of choice in Iran. And I look forward to getting details from our witnesses after this hearing, because the American taxpayers need to know. Mr. Hegseth, can I ask you, do you know what the average cost of a gallon of gas was in this country on February 28th?
Well, it depends on where you live. If you live in California, it's $8.
$2.83. Do you know what the average cost of a gallon of gas is today?
Well, much higher in California.
$4.23. I gotta say, Mr. Hegseth, you said you've got a crack economic team that's looking at the impacts of this war on the American taxpayer, and you can't answer this basic question. That should shock the conscience of every American. General Kane, I want to come back to something, a really important principle, and my time is limited. You testified to an important and bedrock principle of American law, that our service members follow lawful orders and lawful orders only. Is that right? Do you agree with the statement, quote, "The military won't follow unlawful orders"?
I do.
Mr. Hegseth, do you agree with that statement?
I do, but understand what you're insinuating at a partisan point.
I'm not. I'm actually quoting you directly, Mr. Hegseth, from April 12th, 2016. And I appreciate that on the record, you've clarified this important principle of American law.
Gentlelady's time's expired. Chair, I reckon.
Because Hegseth did not walk into that room asking for pocket change. He walked in defending a defense budget request of $1.50 trillion, an amount so enormous that every taxpayer in America has the right to demand answers. And Goodlander did exactly that. She did not ask a complicated military strategy question. She did not ask for classified operational secrets. She asked something basic, something any serious leader should have been ready to answer. Where did the $25 billion already spent in Iran actually go? And that is where the entire performance started falling apart. Hegseth has repeatedly presented himself as someone who would be accountable for every taxpayer dollar, every dollar, where it goes, why it is spent, what purpose it serves. But when Goodlander put that promise to the test, suddenly the confidence disappeared. Suddenly, the answer was not clear. Suddenly, the responsibility shifted to someone else. Suddenly, the American people were told they would get a product after the hearing. That is not accountability. That is delay. That is deflection. That is what people say when they know they do not have the answer in the room. And this is what makes the moment so damaging. The department has already failed multiple audits. It remains under serious accountability concerns. Billions of dollars have already been flagged as questionable or poorly used. And in the middle of that, Hegseth wants the public to trust him with even more money, an ocean of money, while he cannot clearly explain a $25 billion bill that has already been charged to the American taxpayer. That is not fiscal discipline. That is reckless arrogance dressed up as national security. Goodlander's strongest move was that she kept bringing the issue back to ordinary Americans. This was not just about spreadsheets. This was not just about Pentagon accounting. This was about people paying more for gas, food, rent, and basic survival, while officials in Washington demand more and more money with less and less explanation. Hegseth tried to dodge even the gas price question with a political jab about California, but Goodlander cut through it with the numbers. That moment mattered because it showed the gap between Hegseth's rhetoric and reality. He claims to have a serious economic team watching the impact of this war, but he could not answer one of the simplest economic questions affecting everyday Americans. Then came the most brutal part of the exchange. Goodlander asked about a bedrock principle. The military follows lawful orders, not unlawful ones. Hegseth agreed, but immediately tried to frame the question as a partisan attack. That was a mistake, a huge one, because Goodlander was not inventing an accusation. She was quoting him directly. And when she said, "I'm actually quoting you directly, Mr. Hegseth," The entire dynamic flipped. He was not being ambushed by someone else's words. He was being trapped by his own. That is why this moment lands so hard. Hegseth looked prepared to fight a political enemy, but he was not prepared to confront his own record. He tried to turn the question into partisan theater, but Goodlander turned it back into evidence. And once that happened, the image was impossible to ignore. A man demanding massive authority, massive funding, and massive trust, but unable to meet the most basic standard of accountability when challenged under oath. This hearing exposed something deeper than one weak answer. It exposed a leadership problem. Hegseth wants the power of the office without the burden of explanation. He wants the budget without the breakdown. He wants the war without the receipts. He wants the language of accountability without the discipline of actually being accountable. And that is exactly why Goodlander's questioning was so effective. She did not need to shout. She did not need to exaggerate. She simply connected the facts. Failed audits, high-risk warnings, billions in questionable spending, a $1.50 trillion request, a $25 billion war cost, rising pressure on taxpayers, and a witness who could not provide basic answers in real time. The result was devastating, because when someone asks for $1.50 trillion, we'll get back to you later, is not good enough. When someone sends taxpayer dollars into a war of choice, vague promises are not good enough. And when someone claims to stand for accountability, then collapses the moment accountability is demanded, the public has every right to ask, what exactly are they hiding? What exactly do they not know? And why should anyone trust them with more? That is the real takeaway from this hearing. Hegseth was not simply questioned. He was exposed. Not by a trick, not by a smear, not by partisan noise. He was exposed by the most dangerous thing in Washington, a direct question, a missing answer, and his own words coming back to haunt him.